Imagine working only 4 hours a day and making more money than you ever have. What would you do with all the extra time? What would you do with all the extra money? And the biggest question of all, how would you get there? It's a tough question, right? I mean, honestly, I don't know the answer either. But you know who did figure it out? This man. Now, if you've been living under a rock for the last several years and don't know who this is Dan Koe. Dan is a writer, entrepreneur, creator, and in my personal opinion, a modern day philosopher. Over the last several years, Dan has built for himself a social media empire with millions of followers and millions in annual revenue, all while stressing that he rarely works more than 4 hours a day, and he's only 27 years old. Now, I'm not here to talk about how he did it. That's a very specific process that worked for him, and it's very likely that if we try to replicate his process, we'd be disappointed because we didn't see the same results. But what I am here to talk about are the principles that he constantly stresses to his viewers that helped him get to where he is today. The overall philosophies of his content that can be applied to basically any goal, no matter what it is you're trying to do. Now, I've been following Dan for quite a while. I've read his posts, read his newsletters, watched countless of his videos so that I can share with you the 5 biggest lessons I've learned from his content. Real quick though, before I get into those, if you're new here, my name is Edgar. I upload videos every Saturday where I share what I learn on my journey towards reclaiming my time and breaking away from the traditional 9 to 5. If you enjoy this video, please consider subscribing and comment down below what you'd like to see next. And with that, let's get into lessons from Dan Koe. Lesson number 1. Focus is the key to achieving anything you want in life. Now, I made this lesson number 1 for a reason because Dan literally has a whole book called The Art of Focus about focusing. By the way, I'll link the book in the description below. Honestly, I feel like focus is kind of at the core of what all of Dan's content is, right? Because anything you want to do in life is going to require focus. You want to achieve your goals, you're going to have to do focused work towards that goal. You want to play a video game, you're going to have to focus on passing the levels. If you want to have a conversation with somebody, you're going to have to focus on what they're saying if you want the conversation to be meaningful. You know, we've all had those moments where we're trying to accomplish something, but our attention is really somewhere else, right? We're distracted, we're thinking about the things going on in our daily life. And as you go through whatever you're working on, you realize, oh shit, I have no idea what I was just doing, or I wasn't paying attention to what I was reading. And so then you have to go back and do it all over again. So obviously to do good work, you need to be able to focus. And something that Dan constantly stresses is that the greater your focus, the greater work you can accomplish within a shorter amount of time. Dan also has this really great quote that really stresses his belief in the power of focus that simply says, you can drastically change your life in 3 to 6 months with 1 hour a day of pure focused effort. Okay, great, so Dan thinks focusing is important, but how do you do that? Well, the next few lessons kind of break down how to do that, so keep watching. Okay, lesson number 2. Mental clarity will guide you to where you need to go. Now again, this is in relation to focus because 9 times out of 10, it's not that you don't know what to do or what the next steps are. It's that you're not clear about what you want. You know, when you gain that clarity, the path sort of reveals itself. So for example, if I make it clear to my mind that what I want is to be in the best shape possible, then I fully understand that the next step is to take my ass to the gym and start eating better. Right, so when you don't know what you want, you can't take any steps to get there. The problem is that oftentimes it's easy to get distracted by the world, right? Because from the beginning, they tell you, oh, you need to go to school, you need to get a job, you need to do this, you need to do that. They basically outline a path that you need to take so that you can be successful. And then when you're on that path to success, and they throw other forms of distractions at you, such as social media and just endless stimulation, all in an effort to keep you from seeing the fact that you could be doing more. Now, if you're struggling to get clear on what it is you want, then Dan suggests to create an anti-vision, or in other words, get clear on what it is you don't want. My anti-vision, for example, is to be working for the rest of my life at some 9 to 5, giving away all my time for money, only to retire at the age of like 65 and a half, and then not have energy to do anything else. Now again, if you're struggling with that, then Dan has a great quote that can help outline the path for you. If you're lost, the answer is education. If you're educated, the answer is execution. If you're executing, the answer is consistency. Okay, lesson number 3. Live with intentionality. Everything is a choice, right? I dictate how I get to spend all of my free time. Maybe I want to spend it with friends. Maybe I want to spend it playing video games. Maybe I want to spend it doing YouTube. Maybe I want to spend it going to the gym. The thing is, we have to be careful with the choices we make because choices have consequences. And depending on what these choices are, it can have a good outcome, it could have a bad outcome. And achieving things in life is more than just about setting goals, right? You have to create a lifestyle that supports the goals you want to achieve. This is going to require picking and choosing between what you do and what you don't do. And it can be hard because you may have to give up things that you enjoy, like playing video games, or maybe even giving up junk food if you want to get in shape. But the thing is, if we don't make these sacrifices, then we'll never really see how far it is we can go. We'll never see how much we can achieve. But if you talk to any successful person, they will tell you that it's 100% worth it to give up short-term pleasures to see long-term positive results. Which leads me to another great quote by Dan. There doesn't seem to be a more worthwhile endeavor to dedicate your life to than to see what you are capable of. I mean, think about that for a second. What better way is there to live your life than to try to be the best you can be and achieve the most you can achieve? What else is there to do? Okay, lesson number 4. Never stop learning or improving yourself. Now, only right behind focus, this is probably the thing that Dan talks about the most, and that's because only positive things can come from continuing to educate yourself. And it's not hard to do, right? It's free, it's everywhere. You can find anything on the internet. But even if you have to pay for it, so what? It's worth it. Like personally, I'm a pretty frugal spender, But like one thing that I will not skimp out on is buying books, because I just like to read and I just like to learn. Plus, since you're no longer in school or no longer have deadlines for assignments, then you can really just learn at your own pace, so there's no excuse. And on top of that, do you not realize how limiting it can be to go through your entire life with nothing more than a high school education? I mean, aside from how basic that is, like truthfully, they teach you nothing more than what it is that they want to teach you. Plus, it's all biased anyway, right? Like they teach you from the perspective that they choose to. There's just so much knowledge out there in the world that 12 years is not enough to really teach you anything about life. And even if you go to college, that's just very niche, specialized learning for whatever it is you choose to study. So get out there and do some learning on your own. Another quote by Dan: the most dangerous threat to a man's potential is to stop learning after graduation. Don't be that man. Okay, lesson number 5. Everyone should be an entrepreneur, or at the very least, you should join the creator economy. Okay, so all the previous lessons were ended with a quote, but this time I want to start with one. I believe this is actually a quote by Naval Ravikant, but Dan uses it a lot in his writing. So it says, there are 7 billion people on earth. Someday, I hope in the future there are 7 billion businesses. Now the reason why Dan believes in this so strongly is because if you ever want full ownership of your time, if you want to be able to dictate what you spend your time doing, if you want to be in full control of how much money you make, entrepreneurship or the creator economy are the only way. Now it's not easy, of course it takes a shit ton of fucking hard work, but if you desire autonomy, if that is what you want out of life, then this is truly the only way, and it's worth it. Plus there's this whole myth of like, oh, you start a business and now you're working 24/7. Yeah, to some extent, but it doesn't have to be that way, right? Like Dan Koe is a perfect example of this, because he has a multi-million-dollar business and he only works 4 hours a day. Plus in today's day and age, attention really is the new currency, right? What we give our attention to, we spend our money on. And that's why he also thinks that everyone should join the creator economy, because it has unlimited upside potential virtually, with literally no downside, except for maybe being a little cringe at the beginning or being embarrassed to get on camera like whoop-de-fucking-do. That's no big deal. On top of that, the creator economy is really expected to triple or quadruple in size in the next like 5 or 6 years. So there's still a ton of money to be made. So the perfect time to get in is now. And yeah, it's probably gonna be hard. I mean, you have to be able to make good content to capture people's attention. But I'd rather try and fail than look back 5 or 6 years from now and regret that maybe I could have done it if I had really sat down and focused and tried and done it. Now, why are these lessons important, right? I mean, why am I even making this video breaking down the philosophy of Dan Koe? Well, if you're anything like me and you want to be an entrepreneur, or maybe if you're a creator, or even if you're lost in life and you're unsure of your next steps, then these lessons provide some great guidelines to get you started. Plus, you know, Dan Koe's only 2 years older than me, right? But that dude is like just wise beyond his years, you know? So I wanted to give people some insight into his teachings without them having to spend hours watching all of his content or reading all of his newsletters. Now, don't get me wrong. I mean, you should still go check out his content because it's awesome, but this is a great intro into his way of thinking. One of my favorite things about Dan actually is how, you know, brutally honest he is. He doesn't sugarcoat his message or try to fit in with everyone. His content is for people who know that shit ain't sweet and are willing to change and put the work in to see results. And that's what he delivers on. It was actually a huge inspiration for me when I started this channel more than 6 months ago. So a lot of my early videos were sort of modeled after his. They're honestly a little cringy, but if you wanted to check one out, I would suggest this one, where I share my own brutally honest advice for people that are in their 20s. So consider watching that next. And with that, I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.